Today we're going to go through how you can build an AI social media system with the new Recraft V3 model. So Recraft V3 is a new state-of-the-art AI image generation model. Came out roughly 2 weeks ago, end of October. Basically what it does is, as with every other image model like Midjourney or DALL-E, you can put in text and it will generate a AI image for you. Now, the reason I'm talking about Recraft V3 is it's now at the top of the text-to-image model leaderboard that's maintained by Artificial Analysis. So if I go in here, you can see that Recraft V3 is very firmly at that top of the leaderboard. It's beating out models like Flux 1.1 Pro, Flux 1 Pro, Midjourney, Ideogram, all the other stuff that you might be using at this point in time. The way you use it is actually quite similar to sort of your existing models, but the standout features of this is, I guess, similar to Ideogram, where it can reliably generate images with long text as opposed to just a couple of words. So they've got a couple of examples here in the announcement blog post where they've got just heaps of text in these images, and you can see that they're all correct. From my testing so far, it is a lot better at long text, but it's still not 100% from my testing at least, but it's quite close. It's also got just pretty good has good consistency in its images. You can just see from some of the examples here, lots of other cool features that give you a lot more control over the style of the image that you're generating. Cool. So these new models sort of come out from time to time, and what we can do as people who are building in AI is we can use these models in our existing AI automations. Basically, we can update our AI automations to be more powerful by just changing small pieces, swapping out models here and there. So if you're building with large language models, as an example, when GPT-4o came out, you could choose a change from GPT-4 to GPT-4o or GPT-3.5 to GPT-4o and immediately get an increase in performance at a lower cost and with just a single line of code, right? A single line of code change. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to build a social media system that very similar to what we've done in the past. So this is just a classic AI social media automation. If you've watched my previous videos before, this will be very familiar for you. If you haven't watched my videos in the past, then this is a very good system to build if it's your first one. It's very practical and it can save you a lot of time in terms of your social media. But with this system today, we will be using the new Recraft V3 text to image model. Now, in terms of the tools we'll be using a couple of tools. We'll be using Airtable. Now, Airtable will just be used for us to maintain our list of ideas as well as the content or the posts that we're generating with AI. We're also going to use make.com. So make.com is a workflow automation platform, so a no-code workflow automation platform. We use it a lot when we're building AI automations because it lets us very easily connect different software together. So we're going to use this to connect Airtable to our different tools and all that sort of stuff. And finally, we're going to be using Dumpling AI. Now, Dumpling AI will be the tool that actually lets us use the Recraft V3 model within make.com. If I come here and I type in Recraft V3, you'll see that only Dumpling AI offers it currently. There are other providers that you can use as well, but they tend to be a bit harder to use within make.com from my experiences. The only other thing I'll call out is we do need a large language model. So that can be, most people will use something like ChatGPT, so GPT-4o specifically, or you can also use Claude 3.5 Sonnet or something like that. And we'll be using the large language models in order to generate image prompts that will pass into the text to image model. And then we'll also use large language models in order to actually generate the specific posts for each of the social media platforms that we will be DJing. Cool. So before we get into the actual build, let's go through a high-level design of what this system will look like. So this system is more of a classic AI automation system where it's sort of step by step. We're not implementing or leveraging any AI agents in this build, so no agentic workflow, if that's something you're familiar with. If we have some time at the end, I might sort of do a bit of a build on what an AI agent might look like for a similar system. But focus today is really just to show you what AI automation leveraging the new Recraft V3 model will look like in terms of social media automation. Cool. So the first step in this flow is really just coming up with your ideas, right? And I know in a lot of other videos that people recommend scraping Reddit, scraping channels, all that sort of stuff. And we've sort of done that in my previous videos as well. But realistically, when you're maintaining some sort of social media platform, you want your ideas to be relatively authentic, right? Because today, in this day and age, everyone is trying to be lazy. Everyone is trying to fully automate their social media with AI. But at the end of the day, your audience can tell, right? Even those sort of AI shorts generation automations, like you can tell, like the AI images that are generated there look AI generated. The voice is an AI voice. You can tell that that content is fully AI generated, and it will work for certain cases, right? If you're doing like a horror story TikTok page and you're just auto generating shorts, that might work to a certain extent until it's sort of completely saturated because everyone is just generating this content, right? The only winners in that case are the software providers, right? So 11 Labs, that sort of stuff, because everyone's using those services to come up with their content. Anyways, point is, if you want your social media to actually be effective, that is, it actually gives you reach to your audience, which is what most of us want for our businesses, you will need a bit more of a human element in that process. So we're obviously still going to use AI to make the process easier and streamline the process. But if anyone's telling you can fully remove yourself from that process and still get top level performance, I have not seen that done yet, at least in a business niche. So yeah, so I'm going to talk about today, this process is still a human element, but a lot of it is automated with AI. So first step is coming up with the content idea. Now for me, this process is quite organic, right? It comes up when I'm just browsing the internet, I'm browsing Twitter, watching YouTube videos. Sometimes I just come up with an idea. And once I have that idea, I need to capture that idea, right? And with capturing that idea, it's really just depending on your system. So some people will have a Notion. I track some of my ideas in Airtable. Other people will have a dedicated software system for capturing the ideas. For the tutorial today, we'll be using Airtable. So we're capturing all the ideas in a Airtable. If you haven't used Airtable before, it's basically like a spreadsheet on steroids. They have a pretty generous free plan, so you can start with that. So once we've captured it in our system, we want to automatically kick off our automation, and the automation will get a large language model, or you can use an AI agent to generate an image prompt for you. For our tutorial, initially at least, I would just use a large language model to keep it simple. If we have time at the end, I'll show you what a more agentic flow might look like for this. So once we have the image prompt, we use the Recraft V3 model to generate the image. Now it's sort of up to you whether you want to use the same image across all the different social media platforms, or you want to generate unique images for each of the platforms. And then finally, we want to actually generate the content, right? And then finally, we save it to our Airtable to then manually post to each of these platforms. Now, if you wanted to automatically post, it's actually very easy to do. Like make.com has all the relevant modules you need. So for example, if I was doing LinkedIn, you can just create a post, right? Like create a user image post. It's very simple. You can do the same in Instagram. Like making an automation that posts to social media is very easy. The problem is I've actually tested this quite a lot myself on my social media pages, is every time I started to auto post, so post by API, I guess is the more accurate term, I get much less engagement. I would say at least sort of 50% less engagement than usual. And if I keep it up for several weeks, I find that my performance just tanks on social media. And then as soon as I go back to manually posting, for one reason or another, my performance recovers. Now, if you Google this, like some people will say one thing, some people will say another. Generally, people have like some interest. So like if you go to a blog that's maintained by a social media scheduling platform, they're obviously going to tell you that scheduling posts or posting by API is perfectly fine, and there's no evidence that it will impact your performance. And that's true. Like there's no conclusive evidence that it will perform badly. It's just in my own personal testing, I found that every time I've done this, my reach declines. So then I eventually just go back to manually posting, right? And what I'm talking about is like posting via third party. If you just use the built-in scheduling feature within the social media platform. So for example, on YouTube, you can just schedule posts natively within YouTube. I have not had negative impact on that. It's really platforms like Instagram and TikTok where you use a third-party tool like Buffer or something like that to post on a scheduled basis. I've just found my reach just completely tanks. All that to say is instead of automatically posting, what I do now is I just save it back into Airtable in like a posts table. And then from here, I just manually post. I sometimes set myself a reminder. And if I'm feeling super lazy, I just get my VA to post it, my virtual assistant to post it. Yep. So it is, just to recap, it is very possible to automatically post. All I've found is that when you do use automatic posting on these platforms, performance is not where you want it to be. So you either need to manually post it yourself, and you can sort of set yourself a reminder via email or WhatsApp or something like that, or you just hire a virtual assistant just to post these for you manually. And when I've done that, I have to set down performance to be better. Because really, at the end of the day, like if performance is bad, then there's no point in doing any of this, right? So it's sort of like if you automate it and the performance is bad, it kind of defeats the whole point. Cool. So let's get started. So what I'm going to start with is showing you the ideas table. Now, I like to keep my ideas table in Airtable super simple. It's just a table called ideas, and there are two columns here. So there is a idea column and there is a created column. And I just need this timestamp because this is something that will be needed when we're building our make.com automation. So with the ideas, if you want to keep it super easy, you can just come in and type in your ideas. What I like to do is I've created a form. So if you come in here to forms, I've created a new ideas form, and I can now share this form. So I can sort of bookmark this link. I'm not going to bookmark this exact link because this is just for the tutorial, but I have a link like this that's bookmarked. In my actual automation, I actually let it accept input as well. But for this one, we're just going to do this form input. So with this form, you can sort of bookmark it if you want. And then as you're ready, you can come in to say, oh, let's say creating a social media automation system with Recraft V3. Like that's just the rough idea. And I usually, when I'm actually doing this, my ideas is not just like one sentence. I usually like to do a few dot points, right? So it'll be like using make Tom Dumpling AI and ChatGPT focused upon automation rather than agents and all that sort of stuff, right? So basically you press submit here, and when I come back here to my actual Airtable, you'll see that it has appeared within the ideas post, right? So very standard, very basic Airtable stuff. Now, before I go into like the outputs, let's see how we're actually going to use this, right? So you go back into make.com. I'm going to start from scratch here. So what we're going to do is add a module. We're going to use the Airtable, and we're going to use watch records. So what this module will do is every time there is a new record added to a table, it will trigger your automation. So I'm going to press watch records. I'm going to select the relevant table quickly here. So I've selected the relevant base, and I'm going to select table, so ideas. And what you need to do is put in that created field. So as I said before, in order to use this module within make.com, you need to have a field that has timestamps in it that basically tracks when it was created. So I'm going to use that. For the label field, what you're going to call it, I'm just going to say idea, right? Keep it super simple. And let's start is from now on, right? Now with this, there are other things you can do, right? So I don't like to over-complexify things. So I keep it simple. But I know other people have, let's say, a status column here. So it's basically something like this, a status column. And you might have like idea, and then it's like completed or something like that, right? Where it's just tracking the status of your different ideas. And you can do that quite easily. And you can just add those as filters into this formula section to sort of filter out ideas based on their status. But for this automation, all I'm doing is every time a new idea is added, we just trigger this entire automation. So keep it super simple. But I just want to make that clear to you that you can make it more advanced if you want to. Cool. So we have this watch record thing. Let's sort of do an example. Let's try just all, right? So this will pick up what has come in before. So you can see how we changed everything. It also picks up the idea I just submitted, which is create a social media automation system with Recraft V3, right? So this is just the idea. So if we come back here, right, all we've done now is these first two sections. We've come up with the idea and we've captured it in our system. So the next step is really this content creation step. Now there's a couple of different ways you can do this, right? Like you can generate a single image for all platforms, or you can generate an image for each platform. I actually like to do this the other way. So I actually like to generate the content first. Then I generate an image, and then I sometimes generate variants for each. Sometimes I just straight up generate completely different content for each platform. But today what I'll do is actually jig this up a little bit. So if I change this, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to remove these. So I capture into system, and I want to say generate base content. So this is just like the root content that will inspire all the content in each of the platforms. And what I'm going to do is actually split into the three different platforms here. right? Something like this. And what I'm going to do is for each individual platform, I'm going to actually generate a unique image that is in the aspect ratio of that platform, and then generate unique content for each platform, because as you know, what works well on one platform doesn't necessarily work well on another, right? Like if you're posting on LinkedIn, tone and style that works on LinkedIn is very different to the tone and style that works on Instagram, as an example, right? So it looks something like this, right? Cool. So let's actually build this now. So if we come back here, we've captured it. What we need to do is generate that root content, right? So there's a couple ways you can do this. I sometimes use a Dumpling AI agent that I've already set up, but to keep this tutorial simple, at least this initial version, I'm just going to use ChatGPT. So I'm going to open up ChatGPT and I'm going to say create a completion. Now what I want to do is come in here and choose a model. I like to use GPT-4o, but completely up to you. And here is sort of where you tell it to turn the idea into an actual social media post, right? So what I want to say is, I had a idea. Can you help me turn it into a LinkedIn post? And the reason I'm using LinkedIn here is, generally speaking, LinkedIn posts tend to be the most detailed, at least out of the 3 platforms that we have here. So then I start with LinkedIn as the root content. And then from there, the AI can turn it into Twitter posts and Instagram posts. You can also start with Twitter if you want, depending on what type of content you're posting. But I usually start with the most detailed content platform as the root. So in most cases, that's actually a blog post rather than LinkedIn. But in this example, LinkedIn tends to be the most detailed type of post. So I'm going to start with LinkedIn. I just pass in the idea that we got, right? And super simple. So let's run this. Run once. It's going to likely have nothing come through because we haven't submitted anything new. So what I'm going to do, instead of repeatedly filling out the form in Airtable, is I'm going to say choose where to start. And I'm just going to choose that last one that we had. So choose manually, it's loading, and I'm just going to pick that last idea we had, and we're going to run this. So it's going to pretend like we just submitted that new idea, and you can see here in the result, we now have a social media post. Now, as with all automations, you're going to need to spend some time tweaking the prompt here to get it to output in the style and tone that you want. So maybe this isn't what I want, right? So for my own channel, this wouldn't actually be what I want, but that's sort of a very thing. It's different for every business. So if you're doing this for your customers or for your clients or for yourself, it's going to look very different, right? And I'm not going to waste time going through that. If you Google social media prompt, there's like 1,000,001 ways you can do that out there. I wouldn't sort of read too many. It's really more of an iteration process. Just Google it, look at a few for inspiration, and then just dive into trying to prompt to get the type of output that you want. And obviously, if you don't know where to start, I have a video on prompting on my YouTube channel, so you can check that out if you want more details on how to write good prompts. Cool. So we've got that. So we come back to our design. We've got our base content now. So this is where it starts to branch into different platforms. So what we're going to do here is insert a router. So what the router does in make.com basically lets you branch from this single path into multiple paths, right? Which is basically what we want. So we want 3 paths for the 3 different platforms that we're targeting. So the first one we were targeting, I believe, is Twitter. So what we're going to do is, we've got the prompt. Let's get it to generate the image. So as we said before, we're going to get a large language model AI. You can use the agent here as well, but to generate the image prompt first. So I'm going to do same thing, create a completion. I'm going to use 4o mini this time. Or you can use 4o, really up to you. 4o mini is a bit cheaper and faster, but up to you, depends on your volume. So I'm going to use 4o, and then I'm just going to say, user, help me generate the image prompt, the social media post for LinkedIn. Sorry, Twitter. This is the Twitter path, right? And then I'm just going to say, put in the full result. And this is where you can put in like the style of the image you want. So in some cases you might say, I don't want any text in my image, I want the image to be cartoony and abstract, right? As an example. So again, many different ways you can prompt a text to image model. I'm just keeping it super simple here. Again, you can put in examples of what your image prompts should be like so that the large language model can replicate what you want. So once we do this, we have our image prompt. This is where we actually generate the image. So we're using Recraft V3, so dumping AI, generate AI image with Recraft V3. I'm just going to put in the prompt that we just generated. For the size, it's Twitter, and I always forget what Twitter's image dimensions are, right? 1600 times 900, but from memory, I think they're not super strict, so it doesn't really matter. But let's see if Recraft V3 supports that. No, it doesn't. So let's just pick something kind of close. What do they have? 1080 times 1340, 1080 times 1080. So yeah, like if it's a square, it's fine. So 1024 times 1084. If we want it to be a bit more vertical, then we can do 1024 times 1325. Recraft has a number of different styles built in. Just to keep it consistent with what we said before, we're going to use digital illustration. But obviously, feel free to play around with the different styles depending on, again, your social media brand, right? A lot of social media, I think, in the future will come down to being authentic. Obviously, you can use AI tools to streamline the process and to get your content to be the best that it can be. But I think people will really resonate with authenticity going forward. So, yeah. Very easy to build fully automated AI social media systems. It's just that they don't actually reach your audience, then there's no point, right? Cool. So we've got this. So what we've done is we've done these two blocks, and then finally we need to generate the tailored Twitter content. And what we're going to do again is use another ChatGPT prompt and create a completion here. So this is the thing with AI automation, right? There's just so many different steps that we have to map out explicitly, and that's fine because it gives you that certainty. But if you're building this with an AI agent, it's much faster to build, but you lose a bit of that control. Because here I can say, like, exactly after this step, do this. Whereas with an AI agent, you give that decision-making power to the AI agent, and sometimes it just does what it wants, right? So here I'm going to use GP4o again, and I'm just going to say, can you convert this into a Twitter post? Can you convert this linked in post into a Twitter post? And then here you want to put in your style. So the Twitter post should be less than 120 characters. I know the limit is higher now. I just find that for my audience, or at least what I use this for, the shorter tweets do better. So I want that. I will say, do not use any emojis or hashtags. And then I will say minimal use of capitalization and punctuation. So again, this depends on your audience. I just find that on Twitter, when you sort of, don't use emojis, don't use hashtags, because it just makes it look like it's automated or like it's too corporate-y. And then if you minimize punctuation stuff, again, more authentic. Like that's sort of where social media is trending at the moment. So I'll leave that there, and then I'm just going to put in the LinkedIn post that I wanted to repurpose, and that is from the first ChatGPT output. Cool. Now let us run this just to see if this all works. It might not run because this will only pick up nothing. So let's choose where to start again. First, choose manually and use that last idea that we selected, which is creating a social media automation system. So I'm going to press play now, and it is running well. So it's generated the image prompt. Let's have a quick look. Image prompt is less. So we don't want all this random text. So we should get rid of that. Fix that. But the prompt itself was not bad. Let's have a look at the image. So we come here, open this image. I mean, it's not bad. I would probably want to tweak the style a little bit, but that's kind of expected. We didn't give it too much guidance on what style we wanted. And finally, we've got the tweet. Again, with the tweet, you want to give it examples of what you want so it knows what style and tone you want. With this, I'm sort of just showing you the overall steps in an automation. To get it to actually output to the quality, the tone, the style you want, you will need to iterate on the prompts quite a bit. Cool. So let me quickly fix this up a little bit. So what we would do here is change the output so it doesn't have, so just to remind you quickly, the result has all this random text outside of the image prompt. We literally just want the image prompt. So I'm going to come back here. If you go into advanced settings, what you can do is put in a, oh no, and they get rid of it. They keep changing the, oh, here it is. They just moved it up. Okay, so we want a JSON object output, and we want it to parse a JSON object, and I'm just going to say respond with the following JSON format, and I'm just going to say image prompt spray, right? So if I run this real quickly, I'm just going to copy this result, most of that result. I'm just going to run this module. I'm just running only this module just to check that I fixed it. And if I click into results now, we just have the image prompt, which is exactly what I want, right? So then if I fix this here, this will basically improve the quality of the output. Because before we're passing in all that random other text, like ChatGPT is very chatty, right? So it's all this other random text, which obviously dilutes the image prompt. So I'm just fixing that up. But the rest of it should still work the same way. And then from here is really, if you wanted to, you can make it post directly to Twitter. So I've gone through this many times in my previous videos, but you can use the Twitter module. You can upload your image first and then create a post with the image attached, right? So do that. You can do that. As I said before, I'm going to write this post to Airtable. So let's look at the posts table. So what I'm going to do here is actually set up this table. So I haven't set this up yet. So I'm going to delete this field. So this is basically like a table or project planner to track all of my social media posts. So for this one, I'm going to write in edit field. So this will just be right, the actual text content. Maybe we'll call it text content just to be clearer. And then we might add in a image. So the attached image says attachment. So create that field there. And then what we might have here is we don't need notes is, so status, you can update. It'll be like, I think what's in the status, to do, in progress, done, right? So I'll just be to publish. Actually, I'll just do like this, to publish, published. And sometimes I just archive it, because sometimes you come up with an idea that you think is good, and then when you come back to it a day later, you're like, okay, that idea was done. So you can just archive the idea. So I just put archived. We have those three statuses. And then the other thing you have is, because you have multiple platforms, you might have a column that just says like what platform it's for. So this will be a single select, right? And then here I'll have the different platforms. So Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, right? And you can put in sort of as many platforms as you want. So something like this, I'm going to just clear this table quickly so we're starting clean. And basically what you want to do here now is drag in that Airtable module. Now we're going to need to do another block before this, but just to show you what we'll be using, you need to create a record, right? So I've connected the right base. I'm going to select the post table. And what we're going to do here is add in images. So, it actually improved it now. So Airtable will download the file and give it to them. So perfect. So we don't actually need that extra step. So we can just do this now. So we've got the result, which is from this module here. And then the file image URL is from Dumpling AI. We've got the image URL here. The file name, we don't just let it generate automatically, don't really care. For the status, we're going to say to publish. And then for the platform, we're going to say it is Twitter. So turn off map and you can choose. So Twitter. All right. Awesome. So this is looking pretty good now. And you would just do a very similar thing for the other two branches or for whatever social media platforms you're targeting. But let's run through this from the beginning again, right? So choose where to start. We're going to choose again that idea I put in at the beginning of this video. So creating a social media platform or social media automation system with Recraft. I'll press OK. And then I'm going to press run. It's going to pull that idea for a minute. It's basically simulating. It will trigger when we put in a new idea in Airtable. We've now got an error. Something happened. Let's have a look. Not enough credits. Are we using the wrong account? Using the wrong account. So let me try that again one more time. Choose where to start. Choose manually. Again, picking the same idea. So basically simulating, we've submitted our idea. We generate the base social media posts, in this case the LinkedIn post, and then we route into the different parts. In this case, we are first generating the image prompt that we will pass into Recraft V3 in Dumpling AI, and then we'll generate the actual post for Twitter, and then we save it all into Airtable. And then after this branch runs, it will run the second branch and then the third branch. So I'll show you that very soon, but it's finished running the first branch and saved it to Airtable. So you come in here, you can see we've got our first piece of content and it's saved it all, right? So look at this image. See, like I said before, image text is good, but not 100%, right? So ChatGPT is off. And again, you can sort of add different columns as you see for here, just showing you the overall process. So just to show you what it looked like with multiple branches, I'm just going to quickly do another branch. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing. So I won't explain it as closely, but I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to delete these. And what I'm going to do now is delete this. So I've created a second branch, basically exactly the same. But let's say, for example, this is the Instagram branch, right? So I would just tweak my prompt. Where is my prompt? Here's my prompt. So I'll say Instagram, right? And then here, instead of a tweet, it'd be an Instagram caption, right? And with Instagram captions, it can use hashtags because a lot of people still do, right? So again, very platform specific. So I'll just take this out and I'll say into a Instagram caption. Again, I like them short, use hashtags, and you might actually just put in the hashtags you always use here, just so that it's always included, right? And again, it's going to save to Airtable. This time, instead of the platform being Twitter, it's going to be Instagram, right? So just to show you, this is when we have two different platforms connected, right? So I'm going to choose where to start again, and we're going to run this one more time. It's creating a social media platform, okay, and I'm going to press run once. So again, same steps again, right? It runs one branch at a time. Wait, actually, I don't remember if I updated the router. Hopefully the default behavior is how it will run multiple branches. Let's see. Okay, yeah, it's all good. Let's try in second branch. So we come back here, it's done Twitter again. The next one in here should be Instagram. It's sharing images, and now we've got how Instagram. See what it looks like. This is not bad. Oh, we probably should have changed our Instagram picture dimensions to be a square. So that's one thing I forgot to update. But I mean, it looks good. Again, depends on the style that you want for your posts, right? So for this, I would change this for a square because it's Instagram, right? So I'd do 1024, 1024, something like that. Okay, cool. Now, let's say I've built this. How do I actually deploy this, right? Put this into production, as they say. So what I would do is first I would save this, and then I would turn this on. So the problem with this is it doesn't automatically trigger every time there's a new record. It basically just runs on a fixed schedule. So for me, I don't actually check this table that often. So it's not a huge deal for me, like how fast it runs after I've added an idea. So I actually have this set to like every 6 hours or something like that. If you want it to be more responsive, then you can get it to run like every 1 minute as an example. Obviously, the downside is if you're running it every minute, every time it runs, it consumes an operation in make.com. So if you're running it once a minute, you can rack up a lot of operations in your account. So depending on how many operations you have in make.com, like depends on your subscription, you might want to run this less frequently, right? So maybe you want to run this once a day instead, or twice a day instead of once every minute. If you run it every minute, it's just the fastest. It will like run very quickly after you add an idea, but for most cases, you don't actually need that, right? So I'm going to make it run once every minute for now, just for the purposes of this tutorial. So it's going to run once every minute. Now, let's say we're going to go back to our form and we have a new idea, right? So I'm going to say, I don't have an idea right now. Let's see. Let's say when you should use AI agents over AI automations. And then I'll just have like, when I'm running ideas, it's usually free flowing. So I'll say like people get confused by the difference, lots of hype around AI agents, but not always the right tool for the job. Where do AI chatbots fit in? Like all that sort of stuff, right? So let's assume I've written out all my ideas. I've submitted my idea. If I go into Airtable, it's come up in my ideas table, and my make.com automation will sort of check Airtable every minute. So we'll have to wait for at most a minute before this will run again. So I'm just going to have a look in the history just to see. Okay, so it's already running right now. Click into details here. You can hopefully see it running. So it's doing the Twitter post right now. You can see it's running. If I come back into my posts, you should see, cool. So there's already one new post. This is the Twitter post and the Instagram post straight after, right? So this is the Twitter post. I don't actually like this style. Again, I would strongly tweak the prompt. I like my Twitter post to be a bit more substance behind them. But this is just to show you the full system, right? So you've got the image, the Twitter image, and now we've got the Instagram image as well, right? Again, strongly tweak the prompt to make it fit your brand, your tone, sort of what you actually want out of the AI. But I just wanted to show you how you would build this system and how you would leverage the new Recraft V3 model. Cool. So now that all works, I'm going to come back here and turn this automation off before I waste lots of operations because it's literally running once a minute right now. So I'm going to come in here. First of all, I'm going to turn this to every day first, because that's what I would use, or I'd probably use once every 6 hours or something. And then I'm just going to turn off the automation, press save. Cool. So today we've covered basically how you can build a social media automation system using Recraft V3. If you're new to AI automation, this is a very good system to start with, just to familiarize yourself with building AI automations, familiarize yourself with different tools. If you have built a lot of AI automations before, then you've probably built something like this. If you haven't, again, really good automation to build. And if you make content, or your clients make content, super valuable. Like if you talk to anyone who makes content, they probably already have like a Notion document, Google Docs document, or just like a notes app where they just jot down ideas from time to time. But oftentimes, if you don't have a system, those ideas just never get looked at again. They sort of just, you capture them, but then they sort of just die. If you have a system like this, you can actually turn your ideas into content, or even just into something better. So as an example, I sometimes, instead of turning it into Twitter posts, another part is turning it into like TikTok hooks or YouTube video hooks. As an example, basically just turn your ideas into a more digestible format to then help you with content consistency is the whole gist of it. But yeah, that's basically it for this video. If you're interested in the blueprint, this blueprint here, just leave a comment below and I can send it to you. But otherwise, I will see you in my next video.